It's the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission.
All right, looks like we're up on YouTube now.
All right,
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your help, Mr. Carnahan. All right. So, is everyone ready?
Aye, Captain.
All right. Commissioner Hafman, Commissioner Cordes. I saw Commissioner Hafman blink in for a second. All right.
I'm here.
Good. I see Commissioner Cordes as well. All right. I hereby call this meeting of the Sunnyvale Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission to order at 6:43 p.m. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Chair Richard Millinger.
Present.
Vice Chair Leah Melman.
Present.
Commissioner John Cordes.
Present.
Commissioner Arwin Dave.
Present.
Commissioner Dan Hafman.
Present.
Commissioner Tim Wee.
Present.
Commissioner Scott Swell.
Present.
Fantastic. 7 members present and accounted for. All right, before we get started, I'd like to remind our commissioners of some procedural items for this meeting. During the meeting, commissioners and participants should remain muted when not speaking. If commissioners or participants have a question or comment, please use the raise your hand button. Speakers will be called upon to speak one at a time. A random order voice vote will be administered by the recording secretary for each vote. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with State of California Executive Order N2920 regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Public comment will be taken by voicemail or email. Submit public comments by email to bpac@sunnyvale.ca.gov. Submit public comments by voicemail. We're not doing public comments by voicemail anymore. I appear to have an old script. Submit written comments to the BPAC up to 4 hours prior to the meeting to bpac@sunnyvale.ca.gov. Teleconference participation. You may provide audio public comment by connecting to the teleconference meeting online or by telephone. Use the raise hand feature to request to speak. That is *9 on your telephone. The meeting online link is in the agenda. The meeting call-in number is 833-548-0282. Meeting ID is 979-9741-7379. That call-in number again is 833-548-0282. Meeting ID 979-9741-7379. All right. Next on.
I would like to advise that, as I indicated before, my Zoom apps still does not have the virtual raise hand feature.
That would likely. Mr. Garcia, is Commissioner Swale a co-host of the meeting?
No, Commissioner Swell is not a co-host. He should be able to raise his hand.
Commissioner Swale.
When I had this issue in the past, it was because I was running on a Chromebook and I was running it via the app rather than logging in via a web browser.
Okay. Mr. Swale, if I miss you, please don't hesitate to speak up.
I'll do so, thank you.
Because a physically raised hand there's a good chance that I will not be looking at your screen at the exact moment that you do so. So please don't hesitate to speak up and I'll slot you into the call in order.
Thank you.
All right, so we've done the roll call. Next up, we have a presentation Item 20-0890 Vision Zero Plan Progress Update. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, we do. Good evening, commissioners. Yeah, I have an update on the Vision Zero plan. So I'm just going to take you through some slides of the project, where we're at, where we're going, and any comments you might have. Welcome it. So I'm going to share my screen now. So this is, like I said, the Sunnyvale Vision Zero progress update. Slow. Okay, so for tonight's agenda, we're going to be looking at several things. First, we're going to look at the Sunnyvale Vision Zero plan development. So just a brief history of the development of the plan. I know a lot of the commissioners have been on the commission since this project began and participated in a lot of the workshops and public outreach events. But I know there's some new commissioners as well, and whoever's watching from the community. So just brief history on that. The elements of the Vision Zero plan, some of the main concepts included in the plan. So we'll go through those. For the accomplishments and achievements, we'll look at some of the projects that have already been completed that were identified in the plan or near completion. Collision trends, we're just going to look at some yearly collision data for Sunnyvale, and future projects, some projects we've identified in the future that are possible based on grant funding or private redevelopment. So let's start with the Vision Zero plan development. So first, we want to define what Vision Zero is. It's a traffic safety philosophy that rejects traffic crashes as simply accidents and instead sees a traffic safety philosophy that rejects traffic crashes as simply accidents and instead sees preventable incidents that can and must be systematically addressed. Sorry for reading this slide. I'm not going to read through all the slides, but this is very important. And there's 3 guiding principles in the plan. So the first one, Vision Zero takes a safety first approach, prioritizing traffic safety over other transportation considerations. The second principle, Vision Zero acknowledges that traffic deaths and serious injuries are preventable. And the third principle, Vision Zero is a multidisciplinary approach that brings together a diverse set of stakeholders to address the complex problem of traffic safety. So the Vision Zero plan development, this is a abbreviated timeline of the development of the plan. It started as a BPAC study issue in 2016. City Council approved funding for the development of the plan in 2017. So the project actually kicked off in the summer of 2017. It started first with the collision analysis by our project consultant that looked at the collisions throughout the city. It's important to note that all roadways were looked at in the city of Sunnyvale, including El Camino and the expressways, but what wasn't included were any of the freeways that go through Sunnyvale. The community outreach began with the first workshop in the fall of 2017. And so that was mainly to get the community's input on traffic safety. So as you see in the picture, we laid out maps of the entire city, and we wanted to know where people's traffic safety concerns were located. They did that by putting in dots, by putting in Post-it notes with little notes saying what the issues were. It's very helpful. Included with the workshop was an online survey, which we also included a map of the whole city where people could click on different locations in the city and actually describe what type of traffic safety issue they've noticed at that location. The second workshop was to present findings and the implementation strategies. So we identified the traffic safety concerns of the city, and we showed what type of countermeasures, what type of policies, procedures we can implement. And then after we did that, and before we did the final report, we did some walking tours of 3 segments, El Camino, Fremont, and Mary in fall of 2018. And that was really to show what type of safety improvements we were thinking about, and then getting the participants' feelings on if they agreed with the improvements or if they thought there were other things that could be done to improve safety. So those were very helpful. And then we got the final approval last summer in 2019. So another important thing to note about the Vision Zero plan is we looked at the data from 2012 through 2016, 5 years of data. There were over 6,000 collisions, but the report focuses on the KSI, which is collisions where someone was killed or severely injured. So those were only 91. And as you can see with this chart, it represents barely over 1% of the total number of collisions. So we're really focusing on a small subset of the overall number of collisions that have occurred within the city. And if we focus in on the KSI collisions and try and look at the travel mode, you can see a breakdown of the pedestrians, the bicyclists, and just auto-to-auto collisions that resulted in a KSI collision. So these are some interesting maps I included. The map on the left shows the concentration of collisions within the city, with darker colors being a higher concentration of collisions. So as you can see, the higher collisions are mostly on the major roadways within the city. The map on the right is the concentration of comments from the online tool and the public workshop where we got most of the comments, with the darker color being the higher number of comments. So it didn't always match up. Most of the higher comments were in residential areas where people were looking at their neighborhood concerns. And you can tell this by looking just at Lawrence Expressway, where there's a high collision density, it's darker, yet there weren't a lot of comments that we got from residents about the expressway, probably because most people just drive it. They don't walk through there or bike through there, try to avoid that area. Also, too, I wanted to point out that there was over 1,500 comments for the responses. So there was a good number of representative comments throughout the city. So now we're going to move to the elements of the Vision Zero plan. So the most important, or the important part of the Vision Zero plan is focus on one goal. And our goal here was to achieve a 50% reduction in fatalities and serious injuries by 2029, and then continue towards zero in the 10 years that follow. So the guiding principles to help us do that, we have these 7 guiding principles. Deaths are unacceptable. We want safe transportation options for all users, safety over efficiency, quantitative, collaborative, equitable approach to Vision Zero actions. Think about design to minimize serious injuries and anticipate driver error. Try to design for speeds that accommodate all users, and then an evaluation of performance against the Sunnyvale Vision Zero plan's objectives. So as you all may know, there are 7 E's that a lot of people talk about. Well, sometimes there's 5 E's, we've included 7 E's. So there's engineering, education, enforcement, encouragement, evaluation, engagement, and equity. So as part of the city of Sunnyvale, Public Works, we have the most effect on engineering. The Department of Public Safety has the most effect on enforcement. But it's important to note that all of the city including all the departments, city representatives, and the community have some sort of effect on all of these things. So you can read through these, but we do want to include education. We want to encourage people to pick the travel mode that they're most comfortable with and they feel good about. We want to evaluate the roadways, and we want to have, equity for all the members of the community. Also included in the Vision Zero plan were these 10 priority project locations. So we picked these based on the collision analysis that was performed, the feedback from residents, and we didn't want to include locations where there already were improvements identified or pending improvements that were going to be constructed near term. So these were the locations we chose based on that analysis. So you can read through these. A lot of them are on El Camino, and just the nature of you have long spaces between intersections, a lot of desirable locations where people like to cross, to bike right through there to access those locations. But we wanted to also include different areas like Mary, Fremont. You have some locations on Fair Oaks and Matilda and Maud, and another one on Matilda. So included in the plan are these implementable actions, and they're broken up into categories. These categories seen here. So I'll give you some examples of what the implementable actions for these. So for the Vision Zero program initiatives and evaluation, it identifies a task force that looks at Vision Zero's progress, having additional workshops for the community and monitoring. Some things in street design and operations are to prioritize the locations identified in the Vision Zero, some low cost improvements that could be done quickly, design standards that could be implemented to improve safety, and also to continue with our complete streets objectives. For behavioral change, it identified educational campaigns, targeted outreach to different groups, and also some late night travel options for the areas where there's restaurants or other locations where people may tend to drink alcoholic beverages. For vulnerable road users, we looked at completing the bicycle network, including countdown timers for pedestrians at intersections, and also some traffic education classes. So also in the plan is this countermeasure toolbox. So these also broke it down into different categories. And the thought here was if there were any safety issues, we have this toolbox where we can choose from a variety of things to implement that can address safety. So some of the things for roadway design include bulb outs, lane reductions, additional roadway lighting, pedestrian crossings. We had advanced stop and yield lines, pedestrian activated warning beacons, refuge islands. For bikeway design, we included intersection markings for bikes, buffered bike lanes, and the possibility of adding bike paths. Signs marking and operation included stop controlled intersections, parking restrictions at intersections to improve vehicle or driver visibility. Signal timing, we included leading pedestrian interval, again, PED countdown signals, protected left turns. For speed control, we were going to issue or thought about including speed feedback signs, speed humps or tables, raised crosswalks, and reduced school speed zones. For the miscellaneous category, just education campaigns and enforcement. We got through the plan. Now we're going to talk about some of the accomplishments and achievements that we've done so far. So these are some of the projects we've already implemented that were identified as possible locations for improvement. So the Michelangelo Drive and Remington Drive intersection, we put in roadway lights for the pedestrian crossing there. El Camino and Helen, the PED hybrid signal was put in. That's a picture of it. And for El Camino and Henderson, we've implemented, Caltrans implemented the leading pedestrian interval timing. We assisted with them on that. Some other projects, Matilda and Indio, we're removing the pork chop islands to improve pedestrian safety. And we've already implemented the reduced speeds in school zones. We went from 25 miles per hour to 50 miles per hour on local roads. That's a picture of Central Avenue near Ellis School. See, so near-term projects, Fremont, Manane, Bob White. So this is something that's going to improve with the TDA grants that BPAC looked at earlier this year. So some of the improvements here, the curb extension on the northwest corner. So this is an aerial of the intersection. So you can see where the corner can be, we can have a reduction in the corner radius with the addition of ADA ramps. We're also putting in 12-inch signal heads. So this has 8-inch signal heads, which are a little bit smaller and harder to see as a driver. High visibility crosswalks and upgrading the pedestrian push buttons for accessibility. For the Matilda and Maud intersection, that's still in the design phase, but we're going to do some corner improvements with the possible removal of the pork chop islands, reducing the corner radius, and bike striping improvements at the intersection. So we'll just go quickly through this. You've already seen the active transportation plan come to you, but just to reiterate, it includes the bicycle plan, pedestrian plan, safe routes to school plan, and it includes 88.9 miles of bicycle facilities, 184 spot pedestrian improvements, and safe route to school improvements at 21 public schools in the city that serve Sunnyvale students. And this is the roadway safety plan as well. You've looked at this one, but it includes 20 traffic safety projects, 8 signalized intersections, 6 unsignalized intersections, 6 roadway segments, collision analysis, and a benefit cost ratio. And this is all done so we can get grant funding and identify specifically the Highway Safety Improvement Program requirements, but then also other grant opportunities for traffic safety. The Department of Public Safety also applied for a grant. I believe it's through the Office of Traffic Safety from Caltrans. So some of the things that the Department of Public Safety are doing are they have a Safe Routes to School program with a coordinator who meets regularly with school communities. They also have bike rodeo materials for schools. So this is a picture of one of the bike rodeos that shows students how to ride their bike safely. Some of the public safety officers have pedestrian safety education for seniors. They also do DUI checkpoints, and they participated in Know Your Limit campaigns. And then they've also done pedestrian decoy operations where they have someone dressed that in different costumes to draw awareness to them, and still people do not yield to pedestrians. So then the officers pull them over and talk to them about that. So these are some collision trends. And as you recall, the Vision Zero data, just looked at 2012 through 2016. I've added 2017, 2018, and 2019 for reference. You can't really get a trend based on Vision Zero from these. Like I said, the Vision Zero plan was just approved last summer. So this is really only half a year that shows when the Vision Zero plan was enacted. And there weren't a lot of changes to the traffic environment that you can make, make conclusions about with this data, but it's just helpful to see where the city's going with collisions. Seem to be holding pretty steady for the last 3 years. If we look at just the fatal and severe injury, 2019, there doesn't look like there were any fatal collisions, but there were a lot of severe injury. So like I said, these are a small subset of the overall number of collisions, so it's hard to get a trend. You can't really say we're going in the wrong direction here, but it's just something to look at and to think about. So future projects. So the current HSIP cycle, we're actually using the Vision Zero plan projects identified there. And these are the 4 locations that we've have some sort of improvements at that were identified in the Vision Zero plan. And then also 2 Measure B projects. These are the 3 that we'll be working on in Sunnyvale, the Stevens Creek Trail, the Bernardo Undercrossing, and then the Homestead Road corridor improvements. So this is just a picture of the future Stevens Creek Trail. And then some other progress projects we're working on are the Java Drive Road Diet and bicycle facilities, the Mary Avenue overcrossing, which is over 237 and 101, I believe, at the northernmost part of Mary. The Caltrain grade separation at Mary and Sunnyvale. And this is a picture of the Mary and Evelyn grade. It's just a concept. This is something that, to have a discussion about. This isn't the final design by any means. And then the Fair Oaks Bridge improvements where there will be bike facilities. Also too, the Measure B Education and Encouragement Program. We're currently working with VTA on different concepts we can do for that program. I also want to point out development design standards. So whenever there's a development that comes into the city, we look at it in terms of safety and Vision Zero. So some of the things we think about when a development or redevelopment comes in is to see if we can consolidate driveways, install the adjacent bicycle and pedestrian facilities, maybe remove a pork chop island and reduce corner radius, or maybe even install a bulb out. These are just some of the things we look at. So this is an example of one of them. This is Fair Oaks and El Camino. And they removed that pork chop island as part of that project. So you can see where they had the pork chop island and it led to a yield, led to fast turning right turning cars. So they removed the pork chop island, made the corner radius smaller, and also straightened out the crosswalks so that you didn't have the little dog leg. It helps with visually impaired pedestrians to cross straight. So that was pretty much all I had to present at this time. Any questions, I'd be welcome to answer them. I thank you for your attention.
All right, so I'm going to start off with a single question before I hand it off to the commission, and this is for the benefits of our viewers. Mr. Garcia, could you explain for our viewers why it's called Vision Zero?
Yes. So Vision Zero is a term, it started in Europe, in Sweden, I believe, and the goal is to have 0 fatalities on the roadways. So in Sunnyvale, we included fatalities and severe injuries. We want 0 of both. Severe injuries, we consider life-altering injuries that you won't be able to live the same way you did living your life previously. So those are very concerning. So we want to have 0 on the roadways.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Wee.
I have to find my unmute button here. Thank you, Chair Mellinger. Mr. Garcia, for the education program, Measure B, what's the time frame for that, and who is the lead on figuring what the education program should be for Sunnyvale?
So we'll get funding every year. I'm not sure how many years we're going to get funding, but we're supposed to spend an allotment each year. Me and Lillian and our transportation group are coming up with different plans for use of that, as well as Norma O'Connell, who's the Safe Routes to School coordinator, kind of putting our heads together, thinking of how we can use those funds. And we're supposed to spend it each year.
And how much are the funds?
I don't have that in front of me. We will be providing an update on the Measure B education and encouragement next month.
Okay.
We have more clarification on that.
And is there an input process to gather ideas, to have a discussion about what the possibilities are?
We're going to bring the plan next month that will already be funded. But if you have ideas, we're welcome to hear them, maybe for next year. The deadline already passed for this year for the plan. But like I said, we'll be getting funding for the next several years. So if you want to have some input, we'd welcome it.
Yeah, I think for Sunnyvale, it's getting close to around 100,000 per year. I mean, it's a pretty sizable amount of money. Cupertino is getting about 50,000 per year. And yeah, they weren't able to do a lot this year with those funds because of COVID. It really slowed down the program delivery. But Cupertino has been, they do like community bike events. Let's see, Los Gatos actually is doing a bunch of bike courses. They wanted to actually run an instructor course to train instructors. They were looking to cooperate with some other cities to have some smart cycling courses from League of American Bicyclists, which the cities could fund. And then if cities cooperate, then one could have instructor education while others provide the base, sort of the regular course for normal residents. So that that's actually a prerequisite to take the instructor course. So Los Gatos was very interested in doing the instructor course, but didn't have anyone else step up to provide the qualifying course or the regular smart cycling course. So cities could cooperate and have more education. There's relatively little education for adults and actually for youth to some extent in Santa Clara, San Mateo counties in our area in Sunnyvale. San Francisco and Bike East Bay have gotten grants on a regular basis to actually run an ongoing education program continuously, and they educate lots and lots of people, but we don't see that much down here. So having that established in our area would be fantastic.
Yeah, we would like to do some educational classes. Like you mentioned, the COVID has changed our plan for this year. We could possibly do online courses. That's something we're looking at, or even producing handouts we can hand out.
Thank you.
Chair Mellinger, oh, there you go.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Wee. Next up, we have Vice Chair Melman.
So to piggyback a little bit on Commissioner Wee's comments, we might want to consider like a first person point of view video or something as an educational kind of thing. I think if I understood correctly, a lot of the educational components were delivered more towards elementary school age children, and we weren't really getting like middle schoolers and high schoolers per se.
Educational, yeah, the bike rodeos are mostly the grade schools.
Yeah.
You're right there. I don't think there's a lot of junior high school education campaigns, but that's something to consider. to look at.
Yeah, certainly, further outreach. Considering the fact of COVID, I think 2020 is going to be very anomalous in terms of the traffic data, simply because of the decreased volumes of cars on the road, the fact that kids are not physically going to school. So a lot of the daily conflict points have kind of been eliminated. That said, we still have at least one fatality that I know of for this year in 2020 up here in on Tasman. The 90-year-old pedestrian that was co-injured with the teenager, I believe, yes, a 13-year-old, here on Tasman about 2.5 weeks ago. So, even in the age of COVID, one fatality is one too many. So I think I guess that'll come to our next agenda item coming up, but just to keep that in mind, that I think data-wise, 2020 will definitely be a skew point.
Yes, that's something to consider. Collision data, traffic data, we have to keep those things in mind when we're designing for our future roadway. You're absolutely right.
So, but that's all I wanted to say. So I think we could consider definitely online video courses, maybe because I know Commissioner Wee has access to bicycles and cameras, that we could do like a first person point of view, because that way you can see from the bicyclist's point of view, things like how you negotiate like cones and stuff like that, the physics of cycling, which is important. So rather than just handouts, because I think that would be more dynamic. So that's my only suggestion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Vice Chair Melman. Commissioner Hafman.
A couple of questions. First of all, how do you prioritize a group of projects for a given year? I know you have the plan and you've got all the projects identified, but how do you pick which ones are going to be done in a given year?
That's a good question. A lot of it comes with opportunity. If there's a redevelopment project occurring near one of the locations, it's an opportunity to, if there's going to be construction, to have some of the elements implemented as part of that development. Also grants, right? So some of the grant opportunities might come up and there might be certain qualifications needed for the grants, certain, as we talked about before, benefit cost ratios. We can look at those. If it works with that grant, we can apply for those grants. Other times there's just working with other jurisdictions. If Caltrans is having a project, it might be an opportunity to implement some improvements on El Camino or on the freeway ramps.
And have you considered ever having public input? Have a list of projects that are bigger than what you can do and try to get public input to pick which ones?
Not in terms of applying for grants. When we get public input, it's usually through these type of plans. What I didn't mention in the presentation is the several area plans that are going on in the city. The El Camino Precise Plan, the Lawrence Station Plan, the Moffett Park Plan, and there's opportunities for public input on those. And those also have traffic improvements included in those plans. So we get public input through the plan developments. And once a grant opens up, we're ready to go and we know which locations people would want to see improvements.
And last question, one of the objectives states safety over efficiency. Can you just elaborate a little bit on what that means? I mean, it seems to me a lot of times automobile efficiency, or at least automobile throughput, takes priority over safety.
Yeah, there's trade-offs. We want to have throughput just to be able to accommodate the amount of traffic in the city. If we eliminate all lanes, or I mean not all lanes, but eliminate most lanes, make every road, a single lane road, you might have congestion throughout neighborhoods, and that's not a benefit for safety. One example I can give is the Java Drive project we're looking at. It's a 4-lane road, 2 lanes east-west directions. We're looking at removing a travel lane to put in a buffered bike lane or maybe even a class 4 lane there. So that's something where we're trading off efficiency for safety.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Haithman. Commissioner Cordes.
Thank you, Chair Mellinger. I have 3 kind of comments and questions. It looks like all the funding you're talking about so far for doing Vision Zero work is coming from existing funding sources in the budget. So is there any dedicated funding source for implementing projects related to Vision Zero?
We do not have a dedicated funding source specifically for Vision Zero. We do have grant opportunities where we ask for if we need matching funds. And we always use Vision Zero as a reference for that, but not a dedicated capital project funding source for Vision Zero at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Second question. I know Vision Zero doesn't include any kind of rapid response funding for dealing with recent collisions and fatalities. So how was the funding found to fund the improvements on El Camino Real on the way to the school, where the new pedestrian leading indicators and all those other changes, crossing guard, all that stuff was put in? Where did that funding come from?
Are you talking specifically about El Camino Henderson and
Yes.
Allen area? So that's Caltrain's maintained and operated signal. So we work with Caltrans to implement those changes. So I know they were getting requests in to Caltrans directly, and I believe they've talked to us about implementing those changes. I didn't work on that project personally, so I don't know the whole history and background on that, but I know Caltrans is willing to work with us to make those changes.
Okay.
As far as the crossing guard, I believe that was something the Department of Public Safety looked at implementing because of the recent collisions that were occurring there or had occurred.
My final question is I really think the police ped decoy program is worthwhile. You know, the cars do not slow down enough when people are crossing the street. So who should we talk to if we want to encourage the police department to dedicate more funding and officer time to doing that more often?
I believe Access Sunnyvale is a great place to put in all your requests. They get access to that. They have access to that module, and they'll get all the requests, and they get filtered to the right person from each department.
Those are all of my questions, Chair Mellinger.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cordes. I'll go now. General comment. In the future, when we're getting these sort of trend line bar graphs, it would be great if we could get a linear regression fit to the graph. That actually, you know, it can be hard to tell what the actual 10-year trend is if the graph is moving around a bit. So that'd be a nice addition going forward. By my math, if we want a 50% decline over 10 years, that means in KSIs, that means that we need to be making roughly a 7% annual decrease per year by the magic of logarithms. Within 2 to 3 years, right, we should be able to see that is either on track or not, correct?
We should have some indication of where we're going with our trend.
Okay. So hopefully, based on, what we're seeing, let me do a quick bit of math here. If Vision Zero is working according to plan, then we would expect to see roughly a 20% decrease in KSIs in the next 3 years. Assuming a straight constant decline, which is not necessarily what you'd expect to see. So my question is, if in say 3 years time, we're not seeing that kind of decline, if in 3 years, and it's one thing if we're seeing a 15% decline instead of a 20% decline, but if we're not seeing any noticeable statistically significant decline, what will the course of action be?
So I think at that time, we would have to see why the measures we're implementing are not working. We as you've seen in the presentation, there are plenty of improvements we're doing,
Yes.
education and encouragement campaigns.
Mhm.
Those should be helping. If there's a reason why collisions are increasing or safety collisions, we need to know why the trend is going up. And it could very well be that more people choose to bike and walk instead of take an automobile, where there's more chances for someone to be injured. Well, we have to know that through our analysis, either through data collection, looking at the collision reports to see what's going on. We can't just say that the Vision Zero plan is failing if we do not see any decline, but we have to figure out why and make some determinations on either a new course of action, or maybe we need to ramp up our projects. But
Okay.
that will have to be a decision at that time to see what's going on. It's hard to make an assessment, 2 to 3 years out after a plan gets implemented.
Yep. No, absolutely. Last suggestion / thought. You came out of your answer, actually. Obviously, as this is going on, Sunnyvale's population is growing. Given population growth, you would expect to see all else equal, you would expect to see an increase in KSIs proportional to population growth. So future analysis, it may well be worth doing a KSI per capita analysis rather than just straight KSIs. Obviously, the population growth isn't huge. We're talking 1 to 2% per year, maybe, depending. But even so, that compounds over time. So it would be, I think, helpful to get these statistics normalized to population.
Yeah, usually collision rates are based on the amount of traffic through an intersection or roadway.
Right.
So those are things we can look at. With more data. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That just struck me because we were looking at absolute numbers
right
in this. So yeah, if future update, it would be great if we could get some trend lines normalized to population as well.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. I don't think I have any further questions. Commissioner Wee. Actually, excuse me, no, Commissioner Dave, because Commissioner Wee has already gone.
Do we have any access to records of vehicle miles traveled? Because I think that would be one of the ways to normalize this. And when I see national statistics, they're able to do that, I guess, from the census. Do we have any access to that as a city?
We do have a vehicle miles traveled map that we could use. So we do have access to that data. We could figure out a way to include that in our collision data. Maybe that would be helpful as well. Yes.
Excellent. Anything else, Commissioner Dave? All right, thank you very much. Commissioner Wee.
Thank you. Following up on Vice Chair Melman's comments about education, there is actually a really good middle school bicycle skills program that's offered by Wheel Kids that Palo Alto, Menlo Park, and Cupertino, and Los Gatos have all availed themselves of. It would be nice to bring that into Sunnyvale. There was an offer, but Norma O'Connell wasn't able to get that going at the time. Also, as far as online courses, the very best I've seen are from a company called Cycling Savvy. They've done a lot of work on making sure they have really, really good online instruction. And they've done the most impressive courses I've seen from anyone, including the League of American Bicyclists. The League has a few courses, but they're not as sharp as the Cycling Savvy ones. They're quite good. And having in-person courses where people actually are on the bike is definitely far and away the best way, because you actually get to see people perform in real life situations on our local streets. And that's where the middle school bicycle skills courses, they actually do a little bit of classroom, a little bit of in a parking lot where it's safe, and they actually do a real ride with parents and kids together, which is just amazing to see. And everyone that comes out of that course is really happy with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Commissioner Wee. Vice Chair Melman.
There was a question I forgot to ask on the thing. So I saw you had a concept drawing for the Mary Avenue undercrossing for Caltrain as part of your slide presentation. Do we know when we're going to get a formal presentation of that plan, or what do you have any idea of when that's coming up before us?
I do not have an update on that one. I believe.
I'm just kind of interested because it's like
Yeah.
you got that from somewhere, and so it's like what part? I'm kind of wondering where we are in the project. I mean, are we just looking at concepts? Are they going to be proceeding with community input soon, or are we going to get a formal presentation?
Right. This was actually a concept, I believe, at the 2018 State of the City event that was shown
okay.
to the public.
Okay. I was wondering where that came from.
Yeah. So this was shown before. I don't really have an update on the progress of this project at this point.
Okay, fair enough. I
up.
was just wondering where that image came from and
Yeah.
if it was anything recent. But if it came from a 2018 State of the City, that kind of answers it for me. So,
Sure.
But thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Do we have any further question, Commissioner Swale? Thank you.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. Commissioner Melman commented about the Tasman incident. If it could clarify, was that a fatality or an injury?
Both. There was one fatality, a 90-year-old resident, and an injury, I believe, of a fractured wrist to a 13-year-old resident. The person who succumbed about a week after the actual, or 5 days or so after the actual accident.
Yes. So some additional context on that. As you all know, we received an email on the BPAC answer point describing it as having had 2 fatalities roughly immediately after the accident occurred, the crash occurred. It then became apparent that, in fact, at that time, there were no fatalities. And then after that clarification was sent, unfortunately, the 90-year-old victim passed away. So
right, and that information came from the Department of Public Safety in terms of the update as to the condition of the older victim.
So that is the rough timeline and the actual source, the reason why some of that information got confused.
Great, thank you for the clarity. Thank you.
All right. If we have no further questions for Mr. Garcia, going once, going twice. All right, we will now move on to oral communications. This category provides an opportunity for members of the public to address the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission on items not listed on the agenda and is limited to 15 minutes, with a maximum of up to 3 minutes per speaker. Please note the Brown Act open meeting law does not allow the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission to take action on an item not listed on the agenda. If you wish to address the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, please refer to the notice at the beginning of this agenda. Raise your hand or dial *9 if you are on your phone. Individuals are limited to 1 appearance during this section. Do we have any individuals wishing to speak during oral communications? I do not see any hands raised. Going once, going twice, Very well. I am now closing oral communications. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If a member of the public or the BPAC would like a consent calendar item pulled and discussed separately, please refer to the notice at the beginning of the agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak on the consent calendar, please raise your hands. Seeing no members of the public wishing to speak on the consent calendar, I'm going to close the public comment. Commissioner Haithman.
Yes, I would like to have a couple additions put in the minutes of the last meeting.
All right.
On the top of page 7, Commissioner DeVay read parking at the Challenger School, but the comment just said she raised concern about parking. And I think it should be more specific, parking for the soccer field at the Challenger School. The second comment is on page 10, just before the info only report title. I made a comment that lowering speed on El Camino is a good thing. And they dropped the is a good thing. They just said I commented on lowering speed on El Camino. I would like those two phrases to be added back in unless somebody objects.
All right. Is that a motion, Commissioner Haithman?
Yes, that is a motion. Sorry.
All right. So the motion is the minutes as written with the 2 amendments proposed by Commissioner Haithman. So adding the clarification that Commissioner DeVay's comments were speaking specifically to parking near the soccer field at the Challenger School, and clarifying that Commissioner Haithman thinks lowered speed limits on El Camino Real are a good thing.
That is correct.
I will second that motion. Do we have further discussion or amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, Ms. Garcia, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Haithman,
Aye.
Commissioner Swale,
Aye.
Commissioner Wee,
Aye.
Commissioner Cordes,
Aye.
Chair Mellinger,
Aye.
Vice Chair Melman,
Aye.
Commissioner Dave.
Aye.
All right, unanimous.
All right. Excellent. Moving on. We now have onto agenda item 2. This is file number 20-0889, report and discussion of recent Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting. We have, Mr. Simons, welcome. And I believe Mr. Simons has the floor.
Sure. Whether you know it or not, I've emailed you all with a PDF. You should have it already.
Yeah.
It includes the outline agenda and a few pages that I pulled out. And the reason why I didn't give you everything, we're talking 60 some pages, and it never goes through email. It's been a permanent problem with me. I would always have loved to just forward you information, but when you have 100 megabytes of photos and stuff like that, it just does not go through the email process. So anyway, just to give you a heads up, some of the big deals for the last meeting is that the VTA is in the process of selecting the BPAC is selecting their chair and the vice chair. I am on that subcommittee. And I just want to share with you why it's important to watch it. I had a discussion with staff over at the VTA in which I discussed problems that had occurred in the past, such as one time 2 of the 3 members on the nominations committee decided that they would both be chair and the vice chair. And they just wanted the 3rd person on the committee, moi, to also work on discouraging anybody else to be on to nominate people. I thought that was entertaining. I did not share in that. And I thought it was very, very important to have 3 people on it. I didn't realize that year how important it was. Most people don't believe that happened. But anyway, just wanted to share. When I talked to staff about that, he said, well, the commission chose these people, so they're trusting these people. And I said, yeah, you know, most people don't know each other that well when it comes to meetings. You meet once a month or maybe every 2 months for a few times of the year. So that's just a little bit of info. I also wanted to share with you the importance of the new level of service versus the vehicle miles traveled, level of service, VMT and LOS. It's changing. The laws are now using more of a VMT. There's also some ways that cities and counties and other principalities can still use level of service in their decision making. But there was a long discussion and it was very important. And one of the things that came out of it was just a full review. A lot of people are new on the BPAC, so they're not as familiar with it. I think that the big impact in some ways is biggest on land use, because this will impact whether a intersection will have to be expanded and cities or counties have to purchase land to add more lanes for stacking at an intersection, versus maybe what they do is they add bicycle lanes and they don't have to change anything. That's a whole lot of, it's really, really important. So anyway, I just gave you one little thing on that one little item. One other thing I just wanted to talk about, which has to do with capital projects, is that I'm going to hold that off. The one thing I did just on my second page that I think that's second page for you, there's going to be a meeting coming up. It's the Central Bikeway Study Outreach Meetings, October 28th and 29th. It will be virtual. You can find them through the VTA website. I tried to look for more information. Actually, the latest information was just an outline for the BPAC meeting last Wednesday. So that's just the information. Put it if you're interested in seeing what that is. I also included one of the pages in the PDF that shows the map that they're showing outlining the Central Bikeway and what that ensues and what it means. And I thought that would be useful. Next thing that was kind of a big dealie was the measure.
Can I cut in for one moment?
Oh yeah,
Mr.
go
Simons?
for it. Go for it. Please interrupt.
Can the Central Bikeway, are we talking about Central Expressway, or is there
no.
Central?
Central, it's now what there's been an issue of defining the title of this county project. The Central Bikeway is basically an area. How do I say it? It's not necessarily limited to a number of roads. If you look at it, it's this blobby area that kind of partly goes along Caltrains. You have the PDF, but I'm going to try my darndest to show the map area. So it's an area, and the blue dark line is Caltrans, and then you can see the different, there's a wing that goes toward East County as you go from the west to the east. So it's not a rectangle whatsoever. It's more like, I don't even know what you would call it, more of a weird W. Anyway, that is the area that they're working on right now. And the whole thing about improving cross-county connectivity is a big deal, because they've been using words like bicycle superhighways. And then when they show the big, nice, contiguous bicycle connections that have few stops, they're so disconnected, it doesn't connect to anything. So a lot of people were saying, let's get rid of the title of bicycle superhighways, we're not going to exclude cars to make things contiguous on the superhighway project. So I think this is basically a part of it, and they're trying to put it together to make a functional cross-county bikeways that are not odd. And it's a start. I'm not saying this is the solution long-term. This is something that Commissioner Wee will have to continue working on into the future to make it more useful. But this is the beginning of the process. And I think being involved, all of you can virtually share if you're not working on a Wednesday or Wednesday during work hours. You can also go the next day on in the evening, 6 to 7:30 is the next virtual meeting that pertains to the outreach. So that's it, unless somebody else has any questions. Also want to just give you a heads up on the Measure B update. I included a summary of where monies have been allocated and monies have been spent by the VTA and the county. I just found it very entertaining that bicycle and pedestrian projects are allocated for this and the next year at $33.3 million, and we've spent $25,000. I'm not so sure really what has been accomplished. Whereas if you kind of look at transit operations, and I do understand why this has been spent because there's so few people using transit, 67 million has been allocated and 46 has already been spent. Obviously, with the loss of ridership, they're pulling in money as much as possible. It's a useful little table, nice icons, little summary of what each of the funding categories is and what's going on. And that was just an informational only item. The next thing I just want to talk to you about, it has an awful lot to do with the selection of chair and vice chair. I'll bring it up. I'll try to tie the two together. And that is, we got a heads up from staff on the Board Enhancement Committee recommendations. Every few years, the VTA has a Board Enhancement Committee. And what that is it's trying to make the VTA more effective, cut costs, yada, yada, yada. And so I've been on this committee multiple times. And that was when I was chair, and I've been chair twice. And what was useful was that they would hire a consultant. The consultant would come back and almost always give the same recommendation. Number one, there's like 5 committees. The TAC, which is the basically the staff commission, and the PAC, which is the elected officials commission from every city. So there's, Sunnyvale, San Jose, Cupertino, Montecito, and they're usually they're always a city council member or the mayor or vice mayor. And the recommendations from the consultants would always be saying, you know what, the PAC doesn't really do anything. They don't even make quorum. Let's cancel the PAC and try to create a better way of training people who are coming up the food chain for the board. The PAC's not functioning. And oh, by the way, the TAC doesn't need to be an official commission. We suggest that they become an ad hoc committee, which doesn't have to have a formal set of meetings. Staff can meet at their own time. What would happen afterwards is with those recommendations, of course, the PAC and TAC would make a recommendation that says, you know what would save money and make it more efficient? Let's get rid of the BPAC and the CTMA, which is the Handicapped Subcommission. Anyway, we've averted disaster over the years with those modifications. It repeats itself over and over. So Tim, you're listening, I know. The main thing that was very interesting in this time was chairs and vice chairs make a big difference. And only did I find out at the last minute that when we had our latest enhancement committee recommendations, and there was again, it just seems perpetual, the committee made a recommendation to delete the CTMA again and the BPAC. Now, it didn't get forwarded once the public hearings came. Now I'm going to tie it back to why it's important that chairs and vice chairs are selected appropriately. The chair from the last year, who I really like, he's a nice guy, he's one of the best bicycle advocates I know, never went to one of the meetings and wasn't interested in the enhancement issues. He kind of says, it's political. Well, after that, I was kind of thinking, oh my gosh, we need, so the present chair is one of the people. He's brand new from San Jose. He's extremely young, but he showed up for the enhancement committee that had all of the directors and different committee members from different the boards and commissions. And he spoke up very eloquently, and I think that's the reason why he is chair of the BPAC today. So anyway, it's just an entertaining thing that pops up every once in a while. There were 83 recommendations that were forwarded out of something like, with 4 of them not being recommended. The one that would have ended the BPAC was one of them. So anyway, a lot of administrational stuff. There is a little bit of meat in terms of capital project spending that's been discussed, but it was more of an informational item. And the last thing I just want to mention is more of a verbal thing, and that is, I think that goals going on, and this is for a certain member of the BPAC here, I'm kind of saying, if there is one thing that would be useful to make the VTA BPAC more effective, is to bring back the ability to instigate and review capital projects. It's been, I would call it, momentarily been taken away for the last few years, which means there's no way except through TAC or PAC to initiate a bicycle project. There just isn't. So if you think that's kind of an odd thing, most of the big projects over the last 20 years from the VTA since 1999 were all the big projects were all community-driven projects. They took a long time to get done. Oftentimes, the respective cities were initially cool to them, but ultimately, like, I love the one in Cupertino. It went from, we don't want this bicycle bridge, it'll never happen, it's too expensive, we don't have the money to. I'm thinking of the traffic engineer from Cupertino saying, this is the greatest project of my life, and I'm retiring on such a really top, fantastic project. It went from night to day. And I think that a lot of the best projects in the county are community driven, always have. And when I hear one of the things that I'm not gonna pull out for a video, but one of the meetings that we had a couple of months ago that was virtual had a phone-in call from somebody who was complaining in San Jose about a bridge which has been built, a bicycle pedestrian bridge that dumps you off into a homeless area. And there's no connectivity to streets or anything else. And it's kind of like this bridge to nowhere. It goes over one of the freeways. I'm sure it has, the intent was that there's in the future going to be some connectivity to it. But I know that was not a community-driven project, because San Jose has not really ever proposed anything from the BPAC ever that has ever made it up the food chain, just to share with you. So that project that got funded and built, I think does have a problem, and everybody's in that neighborhood is complaining about it. Anyway, that's my report. Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, I spent my last minute on the meeting at the VTA, basically thanking a lot of the staff and past members of the VTA who even aren't there anymore. I mean, one of the things that you would not meet, a person that you would not meet, are people who have retired, who have left the VTA, and one of them was just this incredible #2 at the VTA. And what was fantastic about the person that I have listed here, and I'm thinking of Mike Evanhoe. If you talk to somebody who's probably in retirement, who is political, they will know who Mike Evanhoe was. What a wheeler and dealer. He was able to move money around to get double the projects done. It was absolutely amazing to watch this civil servant who was super, super, super highly effective. And beyond that, the thing that I greatly admired about him is that he truly believed that if you could work with the bike and pedestrian advocates, they were a resource to help to get things done. And it's so rare to see that kind of energy, collaboration. There was no conflict. It was, gee, you don't like this project? Well, maybe we can tweak it and make it better. I've just never seen anyone like Mike Evanhoe, and he's legendary. I will speak up for him. I think he's still around consulting, but anyway, it's just one of the things that I thought of when I've met staff in the past. He's probably right up at the top for staff that I've been greatly impressed with over time. And also mention just people from Sunnyvale that I wish that other people could have worked with. So anyway, that's it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Simons. Before we go on to commissioner comments and questions, I'm going to open the public comment. Any members of the public wishing to address the commission on Mr. Simons' report, please go ahead, raise your hand or dial *9. Seeing no members of the public having raised their hand or dialed *9, going once, going twice, I'm going to close the public hearing on this item. All right, Commissioner Cordes.
Thank you, Chair Mellinger. I just wanted to thank Mr. Simons for many, many, many decades of dedicated service representing Sunnyvale on the VTA BPAC and trying to do all he could to promote bicycling across the region. Thank you, Mr. Simons.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cordes. I think that we all echo that sentiment. Commissioner Simons has dedicated so much of his time to serving the city of Sunnyvale and is an inspiration for all of us. And we thank you all for your service at the VTA BPAC and however many other commissions you've served on. I've lost track. But thank you very much, Commissioner Simons, and we all appreciate it. Commissioner Dave.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask what you're up to next.
Well, one of the weird things that you're like the first person to ever ask that. The one thing I want to tell you is there's one of the people who is inspiring to me is somebody who used to be a Sunnyvale resident and is now a resident of Saratoga. And he was on the VTA BPAC. Last minute, when he was vice chair, he got thrown off the VTA BPAC because he had a kerfuffle with the mayor of Saratoga who didn't like him. So he not only didn't make it to the end of his term, he was ripped off of the BPAC because he upset the mayor because he basically didn't, he's not necessarily politically correct. But what was amazing is you could tell that there's some problem with that particular elected official because within a year or two, he didn't get reelected. And secondly, Jim Stallman is the guy I'm thinking of, and many of you may have already met him, and he's a wonderful, wonderful resource. But Jim stayed involved. He's a bicycle and pedestrian advocate, and he would be interested in bus process of all things of the BPAC. He is the person who loves buses more than anybody else, and he would get involved at the VTA. He was more effective off of the VTA BPAC than when he was on. I mean, he designed a whole layout of Route 280 and 85 and talking about how they could actually build a new lane without destruction of any of the bridges by building a 4-foot by 4-foot model of the darn thing. Anyway, I'm just telling you, the guy he's quite an amazing person. I'm hoping that I'm not a commission member, I'm more of an advocate. And so it's not about whether you are on a commission. I love that all of you are serving, but just serving and saying I've done my year or 2 or 4 or 8, to me, that's not the point. I think the point is if you have an interest and you're interested in certain advocacy, it really doesn't, from what I've learned from Jim Stallman, it really doesn't matter about being on a commission. It is more important to stay involved long-term. And I'm recommending that to all of you, though I would like to see you all stay on for multiple terms and be effective and get involved with SVBC. Many of you are, I mean, Tim, Wee, and John already. So anyway, what am I going to do? I'm going to be concentrating on certain aspects of advocacy. So thank you very much, Arwen.
And continuing to serve on our planning commission, of course.
Oh no, I'm going to give that crap up. So no, I'm still on that for another couple of years.
All right.
By the way, I'll be on, and when I finish that, that'll be 20 years on the planning commission too. So anyway.
All right. Thank you very much, Commissioner Simons. If there are no further commissioner comments or reports, we are now on to agenda item 3, file number 20-0891, potential study issue, sidewalk and bike lane creation on Tasman Drive from Fair Oaks to Lawrence Expressway. Is there a staff report, or are we going to start this off with Vice Chair Melman?
So let me just add a few comments here. So this is a potential study issue from Vice Chair Melman. She can go through that, the study issue in a second. But I just want to remind the commission that you can vote to make this a proposed study issue. So then this would go in our proposed study issue list. This also happens to be the last night you can vote for sponsorship of a study issue for this next year. So if you want to move this forward for consideration for the next year for the city council, we'll need 2 votes tonight. Make it a proposed study issue and make it a sponsored study issue. So just want to point that out.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Garcia. All right, Vice Chair Melman, the floor is yours.
Okay, so in a nutshell, back in 2018, and the report was delivered in 2019, VTA conducted a study on a Tasman corridor upgrade project, wherein they identified what I call the disappearing sidewalk issue on Tasman Drive, where there is not a contiguous sidewalk on the street in either direction for the length of the block where it starts at Lawrence Expressway and ends at Fair Oaks. As a result, the residents do not have a safe route for which to walk. Recently, we had action conducted by a local resident, initiated by a local resident, Ari Feinsmith. So to have a temporary lane closure on Tasman to accommodate pedestrian traffic to the only grocery outlet and retail place on the block to make it safer. That the VTA study revealed that they would not do anything to create a sidewalk because either we required the removal of heritage trees along the Tasman Road, or the removal of a traffic lane in either direction in order to accommodate the sidewalk, and they would consider that too much of an impetus on vehicular traffic. Fast forward to 2020, now that we have a Vision Zero plan and a active transportation plan, wherein we can cite the prioritization of safety over necessarily vehicle access, I'm proposing that we look into, or actually I'm proposing that we remove a lane of traffic in both directions on Tasman Drive in order to provide, 1, a continuous sidewalk on both sides of the street, and 2, potentially a bike lane, whether that's a buffered bike lane or even if it's just, an initial bike lane. And the reason why is that this is primarily a residential neighborhood, and except for the retail space on the corner, there are no other businesses along the street. And also because as part of safe routes to school and because it's on a major transit line, we really need actual safe physical access. I would remind everyone of the very recent traffic fatality that we had as a result of the mid-block crossing of 2 pedestrians, which is a recurring problem, resulting in the death of the 90-year-old pedestrian and the injury of the teenager. So that is my proposal in a nutshell. Richard, you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Melman. We're going to open the public hearing now because I now see that we have a question we have a member of the public who's raised their hand to speak. So we're going to open the public hearing, and it is Mr. Simons. Mr. Garcia, can you unmute Mr. Simons and give him 3 minutes, please?
Okay, I guess I'm unmuted now. Commissioner Melman, I would like to just offer some information. There are some people who are working on that project right now. Would you mind if I emailed you their contact information?
Yeah, I was unaware there was anybody working on the project at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It's actually a county-wide activity. So, yeah, I've been working with some people from other cities who are interested in Tasman, and also there's a resident who's kind of taken it up. So I've kind of tried to pull those people. I'd like you to get into that community.
Has there been any report to the BPAC on this?
Well, no, I don't run it. I have just been trying to pull information and people together. And so they are, the residents are the experts, and then the people from around the country, the county, some of which used to be Sunnyvale residents, have been interested in this for a very long time. And so I've been pulling them also into it.
So is this an informal group or a formal group?
Very, very informal. But they're some of the best people I've worked with in a very, very long time. So,
okay, well, they can certainly be part of our formal proposal to the BPAC.
I think that would be a great thing. So I'll email you.
Yes, I will welcome that information.
I will email you the lead's contact information.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Simon. Seeing no other members of the public who have raised their hands to speak, I'm going to close the public hearing. Do we have any comments or questions for Vice Chair Melman? Commissioner Cordes, no. Commissioner Wee.
Thank you, Chair Mellinger. Let's see. And we can express our opinions at this point, by the way, on the proposal, or is this just for questions only? I'm just want to make sure.
I would like it if we could. I would like it if we could do questions first, then opinions, just to keep things structured.
Okay. Let's see, Vice Chair Melman, as far as this proposal goes, is it required that they actually be bike lanes and sidewalk, or is like a multi-use path a possibility?
I would consider anything that would allow pedestrians to have safe access for the length of the block to be under consideration. A sidewalk makes the most sense because there's like a sidewalk in the beginning of the block and there's a sidewalk at the end of the block, and it just sort of stops in the middle kind of thing. Also because I happen to know there are local residents who have motorized wheelchairs who actually go in the street because they actually cannot, fit on the sidewalk. So if it was a path or whatever, I mean, I would be amenable to that. But as long as it's a safe and accessible route, that would be excellent.
It just occurred to me that sort of a quick build project, you could just put up barriers right away and turn it instantly into a very smooth And with the motorized wheelchairs, they really appreciate actually the asphalt versus the bumpity bump going across a traditional sidewalk.
Yeah, the sidewalks have issues with tree roots and upheavals and stuff like that, which is part of the issue.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it for my question.
All right. Thank you very much, Commissioner Cordes.
Thank you, Chair Mellinger. Vice Chair Melman, along the lines of the same question as Commissioner Wee asked, would you also support it if it was a Class 1 route instead of a buffered bike lane, which is a Class 2B?
Yes. And what I'm mostly concerned with is, first of all, sidewalk. If we can get bike lanes in there as well, that's like icing on the cake, but mostly it's a sidewalk.
All right, thank you. And one thought I had along similar lines is the possibility of swapping the sidewalk and the bike lane. So street, raised sidewalk, bike lane. And that would allow you to have protected bike lane, raised sidewalk without having as much space dedicated to buffering, which might solve some of the geometry problems. All right, do we have any further questions for Vice Chair Melman? Seeing none, I am ready for a motion. Commissioner Wee?
I would like to move to, I say, the motion is for which thing? I think we have to make 2 motions tonight or something for this.
Yes. The first motion should be to put it on the proposed study issues list.
Okay, I move to put on the proposed study issues list. Thank you.
Commissioner Cordes?
Thank you, Chair Mellinger. Mr. Garcia, so if we were going to suggest friendly amendments to this.
Hold on, Mr. Cordes. Is there a second?
I second.
I have a point of order about procedure. So is this the appropriate time to make friendly amendments to this, or should we wait until after it's on the potential study item list, Mr. Garcia?
Either way would work. We have done it both ways. So you can make amendments now, or you can make amendments during the sponsorship.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Therefore, I second the motion.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Cordes. All right, Commissioner Wee, to your motion.
This new, let's see, pedestrian and bicycle a facility in Tasman, I think, is one of the most important things we could accomplish for that neighborhood. That neighborhood really needs excellent bike and pedestrian access. And there's a lot of people who live up there, and they're just very bound into either car or a difficult walk to light rail, and just having bikes and peds being able to get to local businesses, which are actually in both directions, both over to Lawrence as well as over to Fair Oaks, would be a amazing enhancement for this neighborhood to make it much more livable. So I am very strongly in favor of this. At some point, I do want to maybe get away from being so specific about saying it's a sidewalk and bike lane to give a little more flexibility, because I think the Class 1 multi-use path idea could be a quick build, also to put in very quickly and then enhance over time. I'm still very impressed by what Helsinki did with their multi-use paths, basically in a city that were raised and elevated so that bikes and peds had a joint facility that they could use, completely separated from cars. And that allowed, if there was a lot more pedestrians, they could flow into the bike space, or a lot more bikes, they could flow in the pedestrian space. And it was kind of more of a flexible situation than having, this is only for bikes and this is only for peds, and you have to keep separated with a curb. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Wee.
I can't raise my hand.
Vice Chair Melman will assume your hand is raised.
Yes, sorry. So my question is should we rephrase it to the consideration of pedestrian and bike facilities on Tasman Drive then?
I think that would give more flexibility for coming up with a better design. And it may end up being bike lane and a sidewalk, but rather than pre-constrain it to be just that, we want to have excellent facilities up there. And okay. I would like that more flexible terminology used.
I would be accepting of changing the title of it to and the content to match that. It would be the sidewalk and bike lane facility creation.
Or it would be bicycle
or
and
actually-
pedestrian.
Sidewalk and pedestrian facility creation.
Bicycle and pedestrian.
Bike,
facility.
thank you. I can't talk today. Okay, yes.
All right, so I'm going to say that that is a friendly amendment from Commissioner Melman to Commissioner Wee. Commissioner Wee, do you accept the friendly amendment?
Yes, I accept that.
Commissioner Cordes, do you accept the friendly amendment?
Yes, I do.
All right, very good. Vice Chair Melman.
Yes, so I wanted to say that one of the other reasons I forgot to mention why, sorry, why it was not included was also the vehicular thing is that people have expressed issues of concern of traffic congestion on Tasman due to the connectivity between Fair Oaks and Lawrence Expressway. But there are alternative routes that vehicles can take to meet up with those. So
Thank you
that
very
was
much.
information I forgot to include in my previous summary. So.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Melman. Commissioner Hafman.
I have a question. On the write-up, the staff comments said that removal of the heritage trees is not a consideration. If it was a consideration, would it be possible to put in a bike lane / pedestrian sidewalk without taking out a traffic light?
I think it's possible, although the width of the trees on either side of the road is not the same. For instance, on the, I guess you would call it the southward side, or whether, on the southward side, towards the Plaza del Rey mobile home park, there is actual trees and then sidewalk. And then, so the width of the tree plantings is much wider, whereas on the northward side, it's very narrow. So I don't know if it would be able to accommodate an ADA compliant sidewalk and a bike lane on the northern side without taking away a lane of traffic.
I understand the complexity, but it seems like it's premature to say that would not be a consideration. And so if
I
you
think
agree,
the heritage group would nix the removal of the trees.
you agree that you should guarantee that the trees stay, or that should be a consideration in the study issue?
It obviously all cards are on the table, so it should be a consideration of the study issue, but I think we would get pushback.
Yeah, because the staff comment says that's not a consideration at this point. The trees
Right.
have to stay.
Right.
And while I really value trees, I think they should be maybe sacrificed for safety. So I would-
Side note, I believe there is actually a lawsuit of some of the residents from Casa de Amigos with the city regarding the trees because of tree root incursions, upsetting the piering system on some of the mobile homes. So I think it's a complex issue.
All right. Do you have any further comments, Commissioner Hafman?
Just one more thing. Would it make sense to have a friendly amendment, or I would propose a friendly amendment that we shouldn't, as part of this study issue, say that the trees could be considered for removal if it made sense?
Would that really matter if we just don't even mention it? Because then
It's mentioned in the staff comments in the write-up.
but it's not part of our, let's see, do the staff comments, does they stay as just staff comments, or they actually get incorporated into the study issue itself? How does that work?
I'm not sure, but there's 2 pages of write-up in the mailing that we got. The description of what we want to accomplish, and then some limitations on what can be done. and concerns. And one of the limitations said that the heritage trees cannot be removed.
But I think that's a staff comment. That's out of the purview of us to dictate what staff can say about it.
Mr. Garcia, perhaps you could clarify this issue a bit.
Sure. So when we started the new process for study issues, the intent was to have the wording from the commissioners as is. And then it would allow staff to summarize what would be a part of the scope of the study, and then to provide some comments for the commissioners to consider whether or not they want to vote to make this a study issue. So this is just some of the things that we could foresee as being potential issues that might come up during this process. So just to give the commission more information to make a better decision on some of the study issues they're considering.
All right. Commissioner Hafman, if you wish to move forward with this, I would ask that you raise this as a formal amendment so that the full commission can discuss and vote on whether we want to have that.
Okay, do I do that now?
It is in order to raise a formal amendment now.
Okay, then I would like to put a formal amendment in the study issue that the heritage trees could be considered for removal as part of the study.
All right. Is there a second for Commissioner Hafman's formal amendment? I'm seeing that die for lack of a second. All right. Thank you very much, Commissioner Hafman. Do you have any further comments or questions?
Oh, that's it.
All right. Thank you very much. Commissioner Cordes.
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of comments, one for staff. In the staff comments, it states that the Tasman corridor study prepared by VTA is not complete. It is complete.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why you're saying it is currently preparing a Tasman Complete Streets corridor study. That
Yes.
is-
Oh,
that has been finished.
Yeah,
So-
and actually the results of the Tasman corridor study were that they were not going to do anything except I think it was there was a green median or something like that.
Yeah, it was mostly to divert bicycle traffic and pedestrian traffic in other directions. It's effectively a recommendation for the corridor under question. My second is a friendly amendment request for the Vice Chair. You have two items here, reduction of speed and removal of traffic lanes in both directions. Your first one, I think, I want to see if you'd be willing to change it to say, instead of reduction of vehicle speed to lower than 30 miles per hour with speed enforcement indicators, I think what you're really trying to achieve here is traffic calming measures to achieve vehicle speeds of less than 30 miles per hour. And I don't know what traffic enforcement indicators are. So my request is that you accept the friendly amendment to say implement traffic calming measures to achieve vehicle speed reduction of less than 30 miles per hour.
I accept the friendly
With enforcement and indicators. possible.
enforcement indicators are like those lit you are traveling signs. You know,
As a brief note, Commissioner Wee, as the maker of the motion, do you accept the friendly amendment?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Cordes, could you do me a favor and restate that one more time, please?
Change item 1 to say implement traffic calming measures to achieve a vehicle speed reduction to lower than 30 miles per hour on average with speed enforcement indicators.
On average, including speed. All right, thank you. All right, is that, do you have further discussion, Commissioner Cordes? All right. Commissioner Wee.
Thank you. I have another question for staff. And because I actually emailed VTA regarding the Tasman Drive Complete Streets corridor study, and I couldn't find the actual conclusion document on the website, and their schedule kind of left it open. It wasn't clear that it had actually any report had finally been written up on it. I could not find it. I did get a response from VTA, not where the final document was, but there was this, I asked about different options, and they mentioned that they hadn't actually reached any firm conclusion about what could actually happen there. And I'll just read this quickly to you. John Sigamani, who's a VTA project manager with Tasman Complete Street Project, provided this response. The Tasman Complete Street study has been completed as of early 2020. This is a high-level study with no engineering work done. We're simply looking at the vision. We had worked with previous city staff in developing the projects for the plan. The outreach and planning work for that plan had originally looked at the possibility to do a road diet in a major section, but was not supported by the public at that time, as well as city staff. The original plan was also looked at rerouting some bike lanes away and around Tasman up to the end at Morris. At the time of completion, new city staff is revisiting the idea about the road diet as well as the bike lane reroute, and wanting to focus on a direct bike lane through the Adobe Wells neighborhood. The initial Tasman study was 10% design. As the city decides to move forward to moving the plan through 100% design and environmental, they are free to make the necessary changes for the road diet and the bike lanes. So VTA is basically saying that, yeah, no, it's very much on the table. Road diet is reasonable and not, we're not constrained from examining that as a possibility. So they seemed to actually, that wording seems very favorable to me. Yeah, if you want to do that, go investigate it, basically, which was really hopeful. Although, they did say that the study was complete, but I still didn't find the final document that wrote up what their final recommendations were, where they reached it.
I'm looking in my files.
So I just want to reiterate that the study was a existing conditions, I believe, report that stated what was possible there. I do not think the project has been completed as Commissioner Wee has stated. So that's why the staff write-up was shown.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Wee. I have some comments on this. So I think this is excellent. This is long overdue. Tasman has been on my list since I moved to the city 9 years ago. I remember living at Fair Oaks in Tasman and trying to walk to Rabbit's Foot Metering and having the sidewalk run out, and then trying to like walk on the curb or walk, and not step in the ivy and all, not get run over. Tasman is an extremely unsafe road, as we saw tragically last month. One of the elements of the loop, and I don't remember the exact item, and one of the elements of the active transportation plan, everything else, is that we are to prioritize the usability for all users. And people were talking about, one of the points I made with the temporary bike lane proposal on Tasman is that currently the level of service, or prior to that temporary closure, the level of service for pedestrians on Tasman was 0. So yes, there will be a reduction of level of service for cars if we do this. But the level of service for pedestrians on Tasman is 0, and the level of service for bicyclists on Tasman is close to 0. So I think that this is a very valuable and long overdue study issue. I hope that we can support this unanimously. I hope that this is approved by council. One last point. I do think it is appropriate to exclude the possibility of removing heritage trees. If you include the possibility of removing heritage trees, you risk creating a serious neighborhood backlash to the entire project. It is very easy for me to imagine people saying, well, they're going to take away our trees simply if you even include the possibility of it. So I think it is absolutely the right call to exclude that possibility from the get-go. I think the friendly amendments proposed by Vice Chair Cordes, and I believe they were both Vice Chair Cordes, Commissioner Cordes, Commissioner Wee, both strengthen this study issue as well by adding additional flexibility. The only thing I would add to that, and I don't think this needs to be done as a friendly amendment, but is emphasis on the and in bicycle and pedestrian facilities. We're not talking bicycle or pedestrian facilities. We're explicitly talking some sort of facilities that will accommodate both bicyclists and pedestrians. So that is sort of my perspective on this. Commissioner Wee.
So now that we're expressing opinion, so I'm going to vote in favor of this. As Chair Mellinger pointed out, Tasman really needs much better access. And let's see. We really need to make it easier for pedestrians and bicyclists to have as direct a route. And cars, they're faster, they can have more power, they can take the the windy route to get wherever they need to get going. A very popular thing in the Netherlands is to make the pedestrian and bicyclist routes as short and direct as possible to encourage them. And the cars do go around the long way to get where they need to get going. We need mode shift. We need to decrease vehicle miles traveled in Sunnyvale. I'm very supportive of this study issue going forward. So I'll be voting in favor of the study issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Wee. Commissioner Swale, I want to make sure that I haven't missed you. Do you have any comments or thoughts?
No, I just want to say I appreciate the dialogue and the consideration and the support of the study issue. I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Swale. Commissioner Cordes.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to echo similar comments to Commissioner Wee, and that this place is way too dangerous in Sunnyvale. It definitely needs to be a high priority on us to fix if we're going to have more people biking and walking and meet our goals for sustainability and climate reduction and Vision Zero and a whole bunch of other things that Sunnyvale wants to achieve. We need to start changing our roads.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cordes. Commissioner Hafman.
I'm just going to affirm what everybody else has said. The comment or the report earlier tonight on the Vision Zero explicitly stated safety is more important than efficiency. This is an area where you can't get out of that mobile home park on foot without walking on the street. I mean, that is a big problem. So I fully support this study issue.
All right. Thank you very much, Commissioner Hafman. Vice Chair Melman.
Okay, so I was just on the VTA's website, and so looking at the timelines for the project outcome, the preferred design analysis was completed in 2018, and then the report development was spring 2019 to winter 2020. The only presentation we got for pedestrian improvements was the board presentation for focused improvements, and that's also available on the website. And the only remediation shown for Tasman at the specific location that I'm talking about is a new landscape strip, period. Okay? So that is where I'm getting the information from. There is nothing in any of the reports that specifies that they will actually do any remediation to this. The initial report, the initial report information that I got was that it was not feasible, the existing conditions, and then that it was not feasible to make changes to Tasman because of vehicular traffic issues. And that was their language, not mine. And that the recommended remediation for bicyclists was the rerouting around through Elko, basically. Elko and Caribbean, which is pretty just as bad, actually, in some ways. I mean, Persian to Elko, which is basically, you know, not direct. So if there is a final report, you know, if there is any remediation that they're planning, we haven't seen it. They haven't given any presentations to any of the residents in the area that they're actually going to do anything.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Vice Chair Melman. If there are no further comments or questions, Mr. Garcia, may we have the roll call vote on this, please?
Yes. Commissioner Hafman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Melman,
Aye.
Commissioner Dave,
Huge aye.
Commissioner Swale,
Aye.
Chair Mellinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Wee,
Aye.
Commissioner Cortez.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Very good. Mr. Garcia, you mentioned that we need a second motion now, which I believe is to adopt the 3 study issues as the final list for the BPAC.
So this, the next vote is just specific to this study issue. If you recall last meeting in September, the other 2 study issues were voted to be sponsored. So those are already on the sponsored list. So this vote would be to put this study issue on the sponsored list with the other 2.
Okay. Commissioner Wee.
I move to put this on our sponsored list as a study issue.
All right, I'll second that. Cool. Do we have any further discussion or debate?
A few more
Steve.
words in just support of this. 2 other things I forgot to mention earlier.
Sure.
That reroute on Elko, that'd be perfect for cars. Have the cars take the long way around and have the bikes go straight. Also, I think having the lane reduction is very fair and just because there'll be a lane in each direction for cars, a lane in each direction for rail, and a lane in each direction for bikes and peds. It evenly spreads it out so we have equitable access for all modes of transportation. And one footnote is I have actually been biking this corridor a lot recently on purpose. I've been going up and down it probably a dozen times in the past month. And I'm a very confident cyclist. I just take the lane. I've got lots of flashing lights, but I have seen a lot of pedestrians and cyclists hugging the right side, trying to inch their way along this corridor. And it's sad to see them just very afraid of the cars buzzing up and down. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Wee. Vice Chair Melman.
Yeah, imagine what it was like for me every single day that I was commuting to work, taking that route. Every single day. And then coming back home in the evenings and having to get into the left turn lane on Tasman to turn into my mobile home park. That was always an interesting thing with cars zipping by at 50 plus miles an hour, never mind 40.
Hey, thank you very much, Vice Chair Melman. All right. Seeing no further hands raised, no further discussion, Mr. Garcia, may we have the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Chair Mellinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Haithman,
Aye.
Commissioner Swell, Commissioner Dave,
Aye.
Commissioner Wee,
Aye.
Commissioner Cortez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Melman.
Big fat eye.
All right, it's unanimous.
All right, thank you very much. This concludes discussion of agenda item 3. We are now on to agenda item 4, file number 20-0892, BPAC 2020 study issue sponsorship scenario 2. I'm assuming we're not doing scenario 1 at this point, correct, Mr. Garcia?
So, sorry, that was scenario 2. So we voted for that just right now.
Okay, do we have further items for, so we had agenda item 4 and 5, which is study issue sponsorship scenario 2 and scenario 1. Do we have anything further we need to do on study issues?
So study issue, agenda item 4 was the vote for sponsorship for scenario 2 for the Tasman Drive.
I see. Okay.
For 5, that was scenario 1, which is on a faster track, which we voted on last
month.
And that's just the write-up of those 2 study issues for your review. We don't need any votes. If you have comments or rewording, we can certainly look at them. I just want to remind the commission that the city manager's office has the final determination on the wording, but
sure,
we can make any changes you have now.
Okay. So agenda item 5, there is no staff report beyond that. Are there any members of the public wishing to comment on agenda item 5? If you're interested in doing so, please raise your hand, dial *9. Seeing no hands raised, going once, going twice, going to close the public hearing. Commissioner Dave.
We have a 5-minute break. We're 2 hours in.
I think that's an excellent idea. Meeting will reconvene at 8:46. All right. It is now 8:46 p.m. I am returning this meeting of the BPAC to order, reconvening. All right, we are now on to agenda item 5, which is discussion of the write-ups provided by staff. All right. Do we have any discussion or comments on this? All right. I would like to ask our commissioners to please take 2 minutes to just read through these one more time and make sure that you don't have any comments, questions, or corrections you would like to add. All right. All right. Are folks ready to start discussion? All right. Vice Chair Melman.
Yeah, the Fair Oaks Avenue Bike Lanes and Streetscapes Phase 2, which I guess we're getting a presentation on in December of this year.
Sorry. Is this pertinent to the existing study issues?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the work plan. I jumped ahead. My apologies.
We'll get to, not a problem. We will get to that soon. Do we have comments on the existing study issue write-ups? All right, I only have one, which is pertaining to the community-driven ATP proposal. One of the items is identify how the public could submit their recommendations to the Bicycle Pedestrian Safe Routes to School Network. I don't want to over-constrain, but one thought, my sort of assumption going into this was that the public submission process would be similar to how a member of the public would get a study issue proposed, which is you would find your favorite commission member or council member and ask them to submit it. Whether we wanted to have an approach that allowed direct submission of items from members of the public, I'd certainly consider that, but I think the original spirit of my study issue would be met if it was simply, members of the BPAC can propose these or members of city council can propose these. Given that we have 7 BPAC commissioners, we're going to have district council members, we'll have a mayor. I think that members of the public, certainly we could have a process to solicit them or like an announcement going out and so forth. But I think it is within the spirit of the study issue to have it be that it's a commissioner or a council member that proposes these. Commissioner Hafman.
A comment on the Hollenbeck bike lane. The staff summary says that they will be consulting the ATP, and the ATP does not call for a bike lane on Hollenbeck at all. Does that significantly weaken the study issue?
Mr. Garcia, perhaps you could speak to that.
The study issue would look at the active transportation plan as it lays out the framework for the bicycle network, as well as what was proposed for Hollenbeck. So it will be taken into consideration, as well as the general plan. So whether or not this is included in the write-up, since it's an approved plan, it will be looked at.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. For what it's worth, I'm satisfied that that does not weaken the study issue. It's very clear that the study issue is about changing the existing proposal in the ATP. Let's see, Vice Chair Melman.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, I have a question about the timeline for the study issue with respect to the community-driven active transportation plan amendment process. I see the study issue timeline is 2 years. That seems to be pro forma. Is there any way that, because what we're asking for is an expedition of amendments, of review process to the ATP. So is there any way that, why, I guess what I'm asking is why the 2-year timeline? What's going to take 2 years to understand on this? Is there any way we can shorten the timeline?
So the 2 years is pretty standard for the study issue process. It depends on funding, getting the scope of work finalized with the consultant, laying out the timeline for that, as well as staff time. So 2 years is pretty standard. 1 year would be very tight to get everything done. And since the ATP was just approved, the 2-year timeline right now seems to be adequate.
So we need a consultant for this kind of activity. It wouldn't, in what respect?
So the consultant will be the one looking at the evaluation of this, just because there's no one on staff that can implement this program. That has time to implement this program. Let's put it that way.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Do we have any further discussion on the study issue write-ups? Seeing none, we are on to commissioner comments. Do we have any commissioner comments on, there we go, Commissioner Cordes. Commissioner Cordes, you're muted.
I wanted to announce that the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition is doing a forum on our network priority tool on Monday, October 19th at 6 to 7 p.m. So if you want to, we built this tool to help cities evaluate and plan bicycle networks, bicycle master plans. And we did an analysis comparing the results of this tool with the Sunnyvale ATP. So I thought it might be very interesting to all the commissioners. It's 6 to 7 on Monday the 19th. I think hopefully most of you are on lists that you already got the announcement. It was sent out last week, to the Sunnyvale list for SVBC members. If you haven't, please shoot me a note, and or I will post it to the BPAC answer point, and then you'll be able to get the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cordes. All right. Do we have further commissioner comments? Seeing none, we are on to staff comments. Do we have any staff comments?
Yes, we do have some staff comments tonight. So first, the bicycle friendly community application was submitted on September 30th. And the application is included in the info only items of the agenda packet, if you want to take a look at it. The VTA Sunnyvale BPAC appointment, that will be brought to City Council on October 27th. And so after that, if it gets approved, it will be forwarded to the Governance and Audit Committee of VTA for ratification. And so we could have a new VTA BPAC representative. The third thing I wanted to mention was the VTA Measure B Bike and Ped Education Encouragement Program. We submitted a list of projects, and goals for measuring metrics to VTA for review. So we're currently coordinating with VTA to finalize the list, and we will share the list when it becomes available, as I mentioned earlier during the Vision Zero presentation. The final announcement is about the Bernardo Undercrossing project. So we plan to have a joint BPAC meeting with the City of Mountain View. We're tentatively scheduled for that on December 2nd from 5 to 6:30. So Mountain View will host the meeting. It will be prior to their regularly scheduled meeting at 6:30. So an hour and a half before that meeting, we'll be discussing Bernardo. There will be no formal vote at this meeting. It's considered a special meeting just to introduce the project concepts and obtain initial feedback. But we do need a quorum of Sunnyvale BPAC representatives at that meeting. So we'll be sending out an email just to see availability from the commission.
What's the date on that again?
December 2nd, 5
Thank
to
you.
6:30.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll send out an email. If we don't have a quorum available, we'll have to reschedule to another time. Those are all the comments.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Garcia. Next on the agenda, unless we have, do we have any commissioner questions for Mr. Garcia? Seeing none. Next on the agenda, information only reports items, file 20-0894, Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission 2020 Annual Work Plan. Now's your cue, Vice Chair Melman.
So I was asking about the phase 2 of the Fair Oaks Avenue bike lanes and streetscapes. I don't remember when there was a public comment thing on that. So I'm just sort of blanking on that. So I see that it's on the agenda for December 17th. Is there any documentation that we can see prior to that?
I will ask the project manager on that if there's any documentation he can share with the BPAC for that meeting. Yeah, I'll ask him about that.
Yeah, because it's nice to look at it a little ahead of time, so that way if we have any questions, they can kind of formulate it in advance.
Sure.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Commissioner Melman. Or Vice Chair Melman, pardon me. Do we have further discussion on the work plan? All right, seeing none. 208-0895 active items list, October 2020. We have discussion on the active items list. Do we have any idea when we would have an update on the Caltrain grade separations?
I do not know that. I can check on that and we can provide an update maybe next meeting.
That would be fantastic, actually. You know, I think that that's one of the more exciting things coming down the pipe. Just because just not having the freight trains blowing their horns at 1 in the morning will be a substantial quality of life improvement for the city. Cool. I do not have any further comments on the active items list. As a note, the online survey about the Mary Avenue freeway overcrossing closes tonight. Actually, I did have a question on that. So I filled out that survey, but there was no way in the survey to express a preference for a particular option. Is that by design?
I believe Ms. Sang is the project manager on that. Okay.
So the Dennis Singh, Transportation and Traffic Manager, the survey was done that way by design. We had a outreach consultant that helped us with it, and we also coordinated with our communications group. Once the survey is completed, staff will be summarizing the responses and using that information to help inform City Council of what could be a project that could be identified for study in the CEQA document. But it's important to know that within the CEQA document, we're still going to analyze all 5 alternatives fully. And then we just need to identify something as a project to comply with CEQA case law at this point.
So what you're saying is that you're going to analyze all 5 of them no matter what, and the time for a survey on which option people would prefer would essentially be after CEQA?
It would be, we would be doing more public outreach, and then that will be that will be brought to council for the decision as soon as the CEQA document is approved. So then they could fully vet out and see what all the impacts and the results of doing each alternative would be.
Got it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Mr. Ng.
Sure.
Vice Chair Melman.
So looking at the survey, I noticed that you have to create an account to take the survey. And when I click on the link to use like Facebook to do it, it just says, it gives me an error message basically saying that it's beta test or whatever it is and that it doesn't have the ability to do that. So yeah.
I got that same error message. I also got an error message when I tried to do it with Google.
Yes, so I think we have some issues with the site being buggy.
So yes, you may wish to chastise your vendor appropriately. Did you have anything else you wish to add, Vice Chair Melman?
Nope, I'm lowering my hand. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no further hands raised, we're moving on to file number 20-0896, Bicycle Friendly Community Designation Application. The application is attached to the full packet. Do we have any staff report or commissioner comments on the application?
No staff report.
Any commissioner comments? Going once. Going twice. All right. I'm going to close this agenda item. That it completes tonight's BPAC agenda. I move that we adjourn tonight's meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. This is not a debatable motion. Without objection. If there is any objection to adjourning the meeting now, speak now. Without objection, meeting is adjourned at 9:04 p.m. Thank you all very much. Have a lovely evening.